We're going to be starting the walk shortly, but before we do, we've got some kids from the Space Youth who are going to share a few words and some poems with you before the walk starts. So if everyone can pay attention and give them some support, they're a little nervous, and give them a big round of applause, please.
Hello, I'm Leanne. I'm from Avondale Park Primary School, and I made a speech for Grenfell. Grenfell is a sad tragedy and will always be one, but it has joined us up as a community. As a 4-year-old, I only have a short memory of the fire, but it still has affected me and many others. Sadly, 72 lives were lost on June 14, 2017, and we'll always remember them forever in our hearts. This has made us a big, loving community, bringing us as one to remember the loss of the 72 lives on the 7th anniversary. Thinking ahead of us, we hope that this tragedy will pass down through many generations, and it is up to us to never forget. If we don't make a change, no one will. Us youths need to work together to help make a change and hope for justice. We hope for the best for this community Grenfell has made. We all need to speak up and express what we need to say. We have made many memorials, sweet benches and more, but we are still waiting for one thing: justice and change. Thank you for listening.
Today, I want to delve into the fact that the Grenfell tragedy has been silently affecting the youth of the community. As an 8-year-old when the fire occurred, I, like many of us, did not fully grasp the magnitude of the situation. It was actually only last year that I learned the fire was a result of the construction company's negligence in implementing the cladding. This revelation sheds light on the lack of discourse surrounding this issue. The tragic loss of so many young children in the fire is a reminder of the devastating impact of negligence and indifference. Imagine going to the council for the safety of you and your family yet being ignored. Really and truly, everyone who knew about that cladding should be imprisoned for joint enterprise for the death of 72 innocent lives. It is with deep empathy and compassion that we mourn the lives lost and reflect on the profound pain and suffering experienced by their families and loved ones. But 72 lives that could still be here with us if it wasn't for the government's decision to prioritize cost-cutting over the safety and well-being of its people is ridiculous. It's a crucial injustice that cannot be ignored. And I really hope with all my heart that the government know they have blood on their hands. And everyone who knew about that cladding has blood on their hands. Because really, they should be locked up in cells, not out here ordering us on what to do and what we can and can't say. The consequences of their selfish choices have been catastrophic, resulting in a tragedy that could have been prevented. We must hold those responsible accountable for their actions, and we must demand justice for the innocent lives that have been lost. As young children impacted by this devastating event, it is disheartening to see our attempts to address and uncover the underlying problems being met with silence, resistance, or censorship. This is simply unacceptable. Let us come together to amplify the voices of the youth, to ensure that our concerns are heard and addressed. It's time to break the silence and pave the way for meaningful change. Our community's future depends on the ability to confront and rectify the injustices of the past. Let us stand united in our search for truth, justice, and accountability. We've been silenced for way too long, and now's the time to finally be able to speak up against the injustices. Thank you.
Hello guys, my name's Amira. Thank you all for being here. I personally wasn't brought up in this area, however, being here the past week and helping with this day, all I've seen is solidarity, unity, love and support between people of all different ages, races and religions. I feel a part of this community and felt taken in like I was here for years. I don't see this community as neighbours or friends. I see family, and it's the most warmest encounters I've experienced. We're all here to commemorate the 72 beautiful souls, and working with an amazing team, a lovely girl enlightened me with the fact that it doesn't matter how close or distant you were to the 72 lives, we're all humans and are affected by this tragedy. Everyone's experiences vary and do not invalidate yours, and I felt that. Unfortunately, justice hasn't been served, and it's appalling that 7 years on, we haven't seen anyone held accountable for this tragedy. The youth of this generation will not keep quiet, will not be silent, will not give up fighting, and definitely will not take no for an answer. Try to silence us and we'll shout 10 times louder until something is done. It was honestly amazing to work with children even as young as 11 months old at the time of the fire and listen to their perspectives and how they were affected. The youth involved are a bunch of articulate, strong, and passionate young people who are proof that the future will be brighter and led by the most intelligent, powerful, and caring humans, which is what we need to make the world a better place. I want to thank all the organizations that got involved in making this day and the past events happen. Thank you to the space for giving me and all of us the opportunity to speak up when we thought we'd never get the opportunity to. I hope to continue being a part of this team for the years to come to help provide a safe space for everyone to commemorate the departed angels. Thank you to Samia, Jojo, Leo, Jana, and everyone involved as you have been working impeccably hard, staying late nights to make this day run smoothly for us all. I know it's hard for a lot of you standing here today. However, every one of you count towards change. Those with the authority to provide to those affected and the authority to enforce more preventive measures have failed to do so. So if it takes us to create change, or our children, or our grandchildren, or generations to come, we will enforce that one day. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. Thank you for listening.
Every day when I look up at the tower, I go back to being 8 years old and seeing the flames, hearing the screams, and feeling the utter fear and terror on the 14th of June, 2017. However, regardless of my feelings, I was always taught to remain calm, reserved, silent. But why should I be silent when now, 7 years on, all I feel is pain, anger, and rage? Unfortunately, that so-called peace is no longer an option. It's not fair. It's not fair that as a community we had to suffer the results of selfishness, despotism, because the Grenfell Tower fire was not a mistake. As a community, we unanimously fulfilled our duties to look out for one another. It was the higher-ups, the RBKC Council, the government, Arconic, Ryden, Celotex, who failed to fulfill their duties to look out for us, their duties to look out for their residents. The same residents that sent countless complaints and warnings to the council, highlighting multiple security risks affecting the integrity and safety of the Grenfell Tower block. However, all warnings fell on deaf ears. The government have failed us. They failed us the same way they're currently failing our brothers and sisters in Gaza, who are in a continuous fight to prove that they have a right to live without constant besiegement and fright. And dear Arconic, once again, it seems like you murdering innocent lives is becoming a pattern, consciously supplying flammable cladding for Grenfell Tower, but also materials for Israeli fighter jets. When does it end? So on that note, free Palestine from their oppressors. But also free our governments and leaders from the shackles of tyranny and hubris. But it's time to shackle some people's wrists because 7 years of fighting for justice and not a single arrest has been made. Not a single arrest for such a large-scale homicide, assassination. And our fight for justice is not over until we receive it. Justice for the 72 beautiful souls of Grenfell Tower. Justice for our 72 angels who should still be here with us today. Justice for the 18 children who had such bright futures ahead of them and will sadly never get to see them through. However, I put my full trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He is protecting them and allowing them all to explore and play in the gardens of heaven. I put my full trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He has rewarded them with the happiness, peace, and equalities that they couldn't find in this world because He is Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, the most merciful and bestower of mercy. He is As-Salam, the giver of peace. He is Al-Wadud, the most loving, and He is Al-Adil, the one who always delivers absolute justice. I thank each and every one of you in this community who've come together from the night of the fire to now to support one another through our shared hurt and trauma. And I pray that one day we all receive the closure and ultimate justice that we deserve. Thank you.
Hi everybody, my name's Yusra. I wrote this poem because I felt as a young person when the fire happened that we weren't heard. We were silenced and it was all about the adults, so yeah. Follow the adults on the silent walk. You must stay silent, make sure you don't talk. You mustn't speak, little girls and boys. You went through trauma but make no noise. Little children should be seen, they should not be heard. A child having opinions is simply absurd. We are the adults and we know what's best, so come to the silent march and don't you dare protest. We do children a favor when we take away their voice. We allow them to feel happy, allow them to rejoice. Because of course little children know nothing about death. Their understanding is so shallow, their brains lack real depth. Yes, they saw their friends die, but do they really know what occurred? Only the adults understand what happened. We're the true connoisseurs. They don't know what happened. They don't really understand. So we make little children follow us blindly at every command. Like when Downing Street had a party and we'd just been invited, we were sure these little children would be oh so delighted. Now we know there was a fire which these people ignited, but little children must be kind since they have not yet been indicted. Because little children must be kind with whomever they speak. For to get what you want is to keep someone sweet, and to keep someone sweet is to forget all your quarrels. To keep these people sweet is to neglect all your morals, and I won't. I will not shake hands with the devil, nor will I become him. I won't be tempted by the devil, and I won't ever hug him. For I believe in justice in this life. For I believe in justice in this life, where people aren't passive and fight with words, not knives. For I believe in a justice beyond this life that is granted by the creator of the heavens and skies. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala defines to humans what being just is. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that we must be bearers of justice. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that we must neglect injustice. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us just this. I have concluded that I won't be silent. I have concluded that nobody but the devil should be silenced. I'm talking about RBKC, Celotex and Ryden. I'm talking about every member of... I'm talking about RBKC, Celotex and Ryden. I'm talking about every member of parliament that turned out to be a tyrant. This isn't a poem about the silent walk. They weren't the ones who made us silent and told us not to talk. We weren't allowed to speak as little girls and boys. But now we're older and we're making some noise.
Can we get another big round of applause for all the brave speakers, please? It's very, very powerful words, and I must say very well spoken by all of you. Well done. Congratulations. So for those responsible, I want the words to echo, hearing from the future generations that will take over these fights and these battles. This won't stay silent forever. There are going to be days for protests to come, and I'm sure the youth will lead us all in a way of loud, meaningful protests. Today we walk in silence to honor the 72 lives that are no longer here and offer comfort to the bereaved, the survivors, and the community who have been left behind to deal with all of the issues that have unfolded from 7 years ago today. So the silent walk is about to begin. Again, it goes without saying, we just want to thank everyone for showing support continued over the last 7 years and for joining us again on the 7th year anniversary. For those that were here at the beginning of the walk and heard the youth speaking and talking about their struggles with Grenfell and their need for action and their need for their message to be heard, was very powerful, very important. Before I get into too much, I just want to remind everyone, it's not the authorities that are keeping us silent on a silent walk. We keep this silent walk as a time on the anniversary on the 14th of June of every year, as a time to honor, respect, and mourn the people that were lost 7 years ago today. It's not the government asking us to stay silent. But as you heard from the youth earlier, the silence won't always continue. There'll be a time where the voices must be heard and people can channel all their frustrations and anger the right way and make sure that their voices carry loud and clear. So please, honestly, keep supporting us on the 14th. Keep honoring and memorying, keeping everyone in your memory for those that were lost and the families that were left behind to deal with the tragic traumas and depression and the anxieties and the constant fight for justice. We always keep them in our hearts on the 14th, especially on an anniversary. But do keep your eyes peeled and your ears open, because there will be a time with the support of myself and a few of the other stewards where we will help the youth push that movement and push their voices to be heard in ways that they want to be heard. I now want to invite Eamon, who's going to read the names of the 72 that sadly lost their lives 7 years ago today.
We kindly ask you to keep the silence while we remember every individual and family that's passed. Abdessalam Sabar, Ali Yawar Jafari, Dennis Murphy, Muhammad Al-Hajj Ali, Jeremiah Dean, Zainab Dean, Stephen Power, Sheila, Joseph Daniels, Husna Begum, Kamru Mia, Muhammad Hamid, Muhammad Hanif, Rabia Begum, Khadija Khaloufi, Vincent Chijina, Fatima Afras Sahabi, Sakina Afras Sahabi, Isaac Paulos, Hamid Kaini, Berkti Haftoum, Buruk Haftoum, Gary Munders, Debbie Lamprell, Ernie Vital, Marjorie Vital, Jessica Urbano, Amal Ahmeddin, Amaya Tuku Ahmeddin, Mohammed Noor Tuku, Hamda Mahmoud Idris, Victoria King, Alexandra Atala, Mary Mendy, Khadija Say, Farah Hamdan Belqadi, Lina Belqadi, Malak Belqadi, Omar Belqadi, Maria del Pilar Burton, Ligaya Moore, Abdulaziz El-Wahabi, Fawzia El-Wahabi, Mehdi El-Wahabi, Nur Huda El-Wahabi, Yasin El-Wahabi, Logan Gomes, Firdaus Hashim, Hashim Kidir, Noura Jamal, Yahya Hashim, Yaqub Hashim, Fatima Shukir, Minna Shukir, Nadia Shukir, Saria Shukir, Zainab Shukir, Basim Shukir, Anthony Tony Disson, Mariam El-Gohri, Tantislah El-Gohri, Raymond Bernard, aka Moses, Gloria Trevisan, Marco Gotardi, Fathia Hassan, Hania Hassan, Rania Ibrahim, Hisham Rahman, Mohammed Saber Amid Nida, Abu Fras Ibrahim, Isra Ibrahim, Fathia Ali Ahmed Al-Sanusi. Forever in our hearts. I'd like you all to join us for a 72-second silence.
In January 2024, Grenfell Testimony Week was an opportunity for the bereaved and survivors to speak directly to those responsible for the Grenfell Tower fire in 2017. This included Arconic, Kingspan, Celotex, Ryden, the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea, Central Government, the London Fire Brigade, and others. Corporate sent legal representatives and staff who had no personal involvement in the fire. Arconic refused to participate, the same way they refused to attend the public inquiry. Many of the family members you will hear from in this film have never spoken publicly. They have agreed to share parts of their testimonies with you tonight to highlight the relentless pain, anger, and upset we endure 7 years on, whilst those responsible walk free.
We can't move on. We can't forget.
You will never understand the pain and suffering that you have caused.
This is what you've taken away from me.
Can you imagine what it was like?
The situation has been absolutely ridiculous.
A total disregard for our loss.
I make my peace with God, but I fucking hate him.
You all remain driven only by profit. Before you take your last breath and close your eyes for the last time on this earth, I hope you see the towering inferno you created from greed and a lack of human decency.
Over the past 6 years, all I can see is money put before lives. Why do our lives matter so little?
It also highlights years and years of corruption and neglect, which our government must be held accountable for.
We think it's a travesty that the very organisations whom Sheila battled made decisions that led to her death, and there were 71 others in such appalling circumstances.
And I've sat here all week watching you, and I don't see any remorse. Only one of you in this corner of the room stood up. Only one. And I sound angry, and I am angry. I'm very angry. I've had 6.5 years to be angry.
It is a pity that not all the defendant organisations are present. This shows a total disregard for their responsibilities.
So hard to believe no one was aware of the danger waiting to happen.
I want people who caused the fire to know the long-term effect that this has had on all of us.
Just close your eyes and imagine someone on fire, burning in fire. And now imagine that person is your loved ones. This is how we feel, and this is the picture that we have to live with every day and take it with us to the end of our life.
To save life, you don't need a degree. To save life, you don't need education. What you need is humanity.
I feel a part of me has been ripped out. She's not here, and she should be.
This is what Logan's life would have been. This is what our life would have been like. Except it would have been even better. Because Logan would have lived. And in living, been even more full of life.
Can you imagine this loss? Can you imagine what it was like watching our children together as he passed? We were all meant to still be here. We were all still meant to be together.
Grenfell for us is a funeral.
I would love to continue to live not knowing what happened to my son in last minute. That's why you need to hear from me and why you need to accept the responsibilities.
When are they going to give us a justice? Why this has happened to our family?
At only 27 years old, he lost his life because a renovation project was undertaken without conforming to safety regulations.
The organisations responsible for the fire itself are also responsible for the lives, for the lies and confusion that was spread after it.
Those accountable must be punished. Look at what they have done.
We will never forgive. We will never recover.
Your rehearsed lines will not save you. Your expensive lawyers will not save you. Statements like, I do not recall, I do not remember, and no comment will not save you.
I'd now like to introduce Pete Apps, a journalist who has supported the fight and call for justice in this community ever since the fire 7 years ago today. Please give him a warm welcome for him to share a few words with you.
Like many of the people here, I have been coming to these silent walks for 7 years. During each march, as we have just heard, 72 names are always read. A list of the 72 souls taken too soon by the failures of a whole system which let them down. We repeat those names to ensure they are never forgotten, that they will live on in our hearts and in our memories. But today I want to give you another list of names. These two are names no one here should ever forget. But they are not names to hold in your heart with compassion and remembrance. Instead, they are the names to hold in your minds, to remember and repeat when you hear the word justice. They are the names many want us to forget, but we will not. So remember RBKC. Remember that they ignored and disrespected the residents of Grenfell Tower, that they wanted to knock this whole place down and replace it with private housing, that they chose the deadly cladding which covered the tower's walls because they wanted to improve its appearance for people who lived elsewhere, that they ignored critical warnings that the internal fire safety measures were not fit for purpose, and that they did that to save money, which they were happy to spend on operas and street cleaning in wealthier parts of the borough. Remember KCTMO. Remember that they failed to spend the rents they collected on completing the most basic of repairs, that they ignored and missed the recommendations of their own fire risk assessments, that their response to learning of fire safety issues inside Grenfell Tower was to say, let us hope our luck holds and there isn't a fire, rather than to fix them. Remember Studio E, the architects who took on the job of designing the refurbishment without any prior experience of cladding a high-rise building, who did not even bother to check the rules and regulations they were working under. Remember Harley Facades, the subcontractor whose salespeople were promised a very nice meal for recommending the cheap, dangerous cladding which turned this building into an inferno, whose technical staff exchanged emails saying they did not need to bother with fire breaks because, as we all know, the cladding will be gone rather quickly in a fire. Remember Exova, the fire engineers who did not call for higher standards of fire safety, but instead agreed to work with KCTMO to massage the proposals into something acceptable, even though they knew they were making a crap condition worse. Remember Ryden, the lead contractors who branded the residents who complained about their botched and dangerous work rebels, who boasted about being quids in when they made the decision to switch to the cheapest cladding available. Remember Kingspan, who sold their combustible insulation for use on high-rises for years based on tests on a legacy product, and whose staff threatened to sue the arse off anyone who questioned them. Remember Celotex and Saint-Gobain, who used secret fire-resisting boards to rig a crucial fire test on their combustible insulation, who used Grenfell Tower as a guinea pig to demonstrate its use on high-rises, who knew that it would produce clouds of toxic cyanide when burned, whose witnesses have admitted that their actions in doing so were intentional, deliberate, and dishonest. Remember the Building Research Establishment and the British Board of Agreement, who allowed these companies to pay for the tests and certificates, which opened the door for their products to be used on high-rise buildings. Remember Arconic, who knew from as early as 2004 that their cladding burned as ferociously as petrol, but conspired to keep this very confidential, admitting internally that we are not clean, and even writing a policy document in 2007, 10 years before the Grenfell Tower fire, which speculated about the commercial consequences for their business of a fire in a building clad with the product they sold, killing 70 to 80 people. And remember the London Fire Brigade, not the rank and file officers, but the senior staff who knew a cladding fire was possible in London, but simply refused to make a plan for how to respond to it, who failed to learn the lessons from the 6 avoidable deaths at Akinnola House in 2009, and who presided over a culture where racial abuse and racial slurs about the minority ethnic victims of fire were commonplace. Remember the Metropolitan Police, who, on the night of the fire, treated those fleeing this building and searching for their loved ones as criminals, and who have recently announced that they will not bring those responsible for the blaze to court until at least 2027. Where is that delay, we ask, when a member of this community is accused of a crime? And remember the UK government, who deliberately deregulated the building industry to allow it to maximise its profits, who had specific warnings about the risk of dangerous cladding from at least 1991, warnings which were repeated over and over and over again in the 26 years that followed, but who chose at every stage the needs of industry profit over the lives of the human beings who live in tower blocks. These are the names of the organisations I want you to hold in your mind when you hear the call for justice. But I want you to also remember that when we speak of organisations, we are really speaking about the people who controlled them and made them behave in the way that they did. So we are talking about you, Nicholas Paget Brown, Rock Fielding Mellon, Laura Johnson, Peter Madison, Robert Black, Claire Williams, Cole Stokes, and all the others who ignored the voices of Grenfell Tower residents and failed to keep their home in a safe state. We are talking about you, Bruce Soanes, Ray Bailey, Daniel Anketel-Jones, Simon Lawrence, and all the others responsible for the refurbishment which turned the homes of almost 300 people into a death trap. We are talking about you, Philip Heath, Tony Millichap, Jean Murtagh, Craig Chambers, Rob Warren, Debbie French, Claude Schmidt, Claude Verler, Diana Perrier, and all the others who shared boardrooms with you as you placed your profits above the lives of human beings. And we are talking about you, Brian Martin, Nick Rainsford, Gavin Barwell, Stephen Williams, Eric Pickles, David Cameron, and every other British politician from every party who has chosen cutting red tape over safety. And we say this to you all. Just because 7 years have passed, do not think you have gotten away with it. We have not forgotten. We have not forgotten. We will not forget. We will keep your names in our minds and on our lips. And they will stay there until we see justice for the 72 names we hold in our hearts. Thank you very much.
Can we extend that round of applause, please? I'd now like to introduce you to Jason Evans, the founder of Factor 8. Round of applause for Jason, please.
Thank you. When I was 4 years old, my dad died of AIDS, which might seem like a strange thing to say here today, but he was a victim of the infected blood scandal. And you may have seen in the news last month, the inquiry report came out, very damning. Similar story. Corners cut, profits, but ahead of lives. In our story, between 2,500 to 5,000 people were infected with hepatitis C, and around 1,200, including my own father, were infected with HIV. Of that 1,200, only around 200 are still alive. Most died through the 1990s. I'm now 34. 3 decades since my dad died. 3 decades we waited for the truth, for answers which we got eventually last month. The government now is setting up the compensation scheme. But will anyone really be held accountable? Will the pharmaceutical companies that made millions of dollars off selling these pharmaceutical Factor 8 products be in prison? No, even though they knew the risks. Same story. I joined the walk today. I'd never joined the walk before. And what you have here is truly incredible, this community. I wish we had that same community. And so before I carry on, just make some noise for yourselves, for this community. It's truly incredible what you've got here. It really is. We got our truth and answers last month, as I said. Your inquiry is coming towards the end of this year, and we've got representatives from other inquiries here as well that are coming down the track. But the common thread, the reason I'm here today, is that as it stands, when these inquiries report, ours, yours, there is nothing that is there when they produce their recommendations and findings that actually ensures whoever the government is. And believe me when I say this, we've been fighting for 3 decades. Whether you're Tory, whether you're Labour, Lib Dem, whatever, when they get in and the men in grey get a hold, it doesn't matter. The civil service will lock it down. And so the reason I'm here is to say we need this national oversight mechanism which will ensure that inquiry recommendations do get that response. And that's why I'm here to stand alongside Grenfell United, all of you guys and the other inquiries, to say, from the infected blood scandal community, we fully support that call. We fully support your cause. We got our truth answers, and I just hope to God you get yours too. Thank you.
Please keep that round of applause going. And now I'd like to introduce Lobby Akinnola from the COVID-19 Bereaved Families for Justice. Please put your hands together.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for allowing us, COVID Bereaved Families for Justice, to stand alongside you today. My name is Lobby. I'm here because I lost my father, Femi Akinnola, to COVID in April 2020. A kind and loving man, he was one of over 200,000 people who lost their lives to COVID. People from all walks of life, all colors and creeds, but the one thing they have in common and the one thing they share with the 72 beautiful souls we honor today is that the government failed them. And it is time and again the same inequalities, the same injustices that lead to the same victims. This cannot be allowed to stand anymore. We are all here today to represent those who don't have a voice. We have all fought for inquiries because without account, we cannot have accountability. But we need more. We need action and we need change. I'm proud to stand here today representing COVID Bereaved Families, standing shoulder to shoulder with Grenfell United, the Infected Blood Inquiry, Factor 8, and others to call for the National Oversight Mechanism. This mechanism will ensure that the lessons learned from inquiries and inquests don't go unaddressed. We can all stand here and ask ourselves questions that haunt us. How many lives could have been saved if the government had listened to the recommendations of Exercise Cygnus? Would we all be here today if they had learned the lessons from Lacknell House? But the thing that I see today from all the speakers, hearing the pained yet powerful voices of the children and the testimonies, is that the government is not there for the people to bow to. The government answers to the people. I believe that our actions, our voices, and our unity will ensure that our lost loved ones and all of those who have suffered because of government inaction will lead to a better tomorrow. No longer will a system that prioritizes profit over people be allowed to stand. Together, side by side, as a united voice, we will ensure that the legacy of our loved ones is not one of sorrow, but of change, and it will be a legacy of justice. Thank you.
For those that remain, I just want to thank you for your patience. We've got a few more speeches before we end the walk for the 7th year anniversary. Now, louder than ever, I'd like to introduce Marcio from Grenfell United, who will address you all. And I want you to extend your round of applause to those at Grenfell United who have done endless efforts and work to get this event on and to have all of this setup done to share messages with you today. So a big round of applause for Marcio, please.
It is 7 years since the Grenfell Tower fire. 7 years since 18 children were sleeping soundly, not knowing they would never wake up. It's painful every year, but this year feels heavy. 12 months ago, we stood here on this stage and spoke to all of you. We told you that nothing had changed, that people still live in death traps like Grenfell, that the government still hasn't implemented the Phase 1 report recommendations, that the inquiry still hasn't published the Phase 2 report. The list goes on. And today, 7 years since our loved ones were murdered, still nothing has changed. And we sound like a broken record. Grenfell was not a catalyst for change. 72 people burned to death. And every single one of those were avoidable. Their lives were taken away by those who were supposed to protect us. But we don't trust anyone anymore. Our legal representatives' duties were to act in our best interests, but some were more concerned about themselves. They made dubious decisions to our detriment, tried to pull the wool over our eyes again and again. And now you will find them plastering all over Grenfell lawyer, all over their resume, patting themselves on the backs, waiting to chase the next ambulance. But the one thing we actually had faith in, maybe because it was the one thing we had to trust, was our health service and the monitoring of the long-term effects Grenfell could have on our children. It hurts to say this, but we were let down by our health system, which failed to allow the frontline staff, doctors, and specialists to do their jobs. The coroner's letter to government and NHSE Regulation 28 was put into effect, demanding close monitoring of survivors. But the ICB, previously known as the CCG, who decides who and what to commission, failed to fulfill it. Instead, they used the money to grow their own commission team, to commission private sector companies and pour money into the bottomless pit of private GP surgeries, while stripping vital frontline NHS staff and their role to tackle the root of our health conditions. Our local politicians spend their time playing a game. Let's see who can smear better, even smearing the victims they claim to represent, while sitting in Parliament voting against the very thing we have been fighting for: vital, life-saving recommendations on fire safety from the public inquiry. But the government's time is up. Campaign groups across the country are uniting under the same battle for justice. And when we stand together, our numbers multiply. We are proud tonight to share this stage with two other vital campaigns: Infected Blood and COVID. and share our call for a national oversight mechanism. But tonight, we are uniting with all of the bereaved up and down the country who have suffered losing loved ones in state care. We stand together tonight to send the new government a message. Fix this broken country. Rebuild these broken systems. We demand justice. We demand change. We demand charges. Thank you for joining us 7 years on. Thank you for joining us 7 years on. You walk with us where our 72 can't. Thank you for keeping their memories alive. Your support keeps us going. Keep walking with us. Keep showing up. You make our voices stronger. To our 72 angels, you are forever in our hearts.
Thank you, Marcio. It's been blessed to share the stage with people from different campaigns. In times of tragedy, it's about uniting and helping support different movements of people fighting injustice across the country, and we can't forget those fighting injustice across the world. So this is for everyone suffering in Palestine at the moment. When I say free, 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 free. The injustices are clear to us all. We've all seen the videos, we've seen the horrors. Women, children, men being slaughtered. And it'd only be right if we honor their memory today. So one more time, as loud as we can, please. Free, free. I'd now like to introduce Mickey, a familiar face to all, to share a few words with you before we do our final call for justice. Please give him a big round of applause.
Greetings, salutations, manners, and respect to all. I'd like to thank you all for joining us. 7 years. 7 years ago, we watched 72 people, 18 children, burn to death. That wasn't an accident. There are people to blame, and 5 years on from the phase 1 of the inquiry, there still are people living in buildings just like this, and Grenfell 2 is waiting to happen. Politicians, for the last 7 years, have fobbed us off. We were an abandoned community. We were fractured. But what are we now? We're a family. Look at us. We've been here for 7 years. We're walking. We're not going to stop. Those that know me know I really like the sound of my own voice. I like to talk. I don't mind speaking in front of you guys. But what we witnessed today is a changing of the guard. I watched young people, as young as, they were 8 years old at the time of the fire. They're 15, 16 years old, and they were some of the most powerful speakers I've ever heard in my life. All I want to do now is say that myself, Zeyad, there's loads of us stewards, we're going to be on hand at any day other than the 14th of June, and we're here to serve you young people. Whatever you want to do to fight for justice, we'll facilitate it. You tell us when, you tell us where, you tell us how, and we will be here. And Rishi Sunak did us a favor calling an election. But this is directly to whoever is going to be our next Prime Minister. Keir Starmer, Rishi Sunak, Nigel Farage, we are watching you. And there are young lions in Kensington and Chelsea that will hold you to account, and we will not rest until justice is served. God bless you all. Thank you very much.
And on that note, the final call for justice. 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 To share this walk with you for 7 years consistently has been an absolute pleasure. We couldn't do it without your support and your energy. You don't understand how much we take from having everyone here on an anniversary walking with us and respecting the silence that is wished from majority of the community. But to echo Mickey's words, for the youth who want to take over, we are ready for you, and we're here to listen, and we're here to, as Mickey said, facilitate whatever you need us to do. We will be there for you guys. I want to thank you all again for joining us. God bless every single one of you. And if I can ask anyone holding any of the green hearts or the placards to just leave them against the Methodist Church fences for us to collect and keep for later walks and later events. But again, thank you all for your continued support. It's appreciated more than you could ever imagine. Thank you and good night.